Hello and welcome to Tech Deal's Ryzen 7 1700 computer build video series, part 1, parts overview. This is going to be the overview of all the parts that are going into the build, as well as an alternative selection of parts depending upon your budget. It will be followed up by a longer detailed behind the scenes why vlog going into very detailed selections of each component. The third video is going to be the actual build where I show you the construction of this machine, overhead camera shot step by step, and then we'll do Windows installation, Windows performance review, video editing and rendering, 3D animation, game performance, and many more videos. Now, I've covered the Ryzen 7 CPU extensively, links to those in the video description below. In the video description will also be the two full builds that I'm going to be talking about in this video. The first one is a $2,400 deluxe build using RGB RAM and a case and RGB lighting. It'll be very pretty. The second one is $1,500. Very similar in performance without all the bling. So go check out the links in the video description below. I have links to both Amazon and Newegg down there for all the parts in both builds. First up, we have our CPU, the AMD Ryzen 7 1700. Now, both builds are going to have the same CPU in it, $330. It includes the LED RGB lit Wraith Spire cooler from AMD, which I think many people should use. That is a common feature of both builds. Now, as an example, the second video in the series, the Y vlog, which will be much longer, is where I will go into detail about should you get a 1700X or an 1800, should you get a Ryzen 5, or what about an Intel? I'll go into that level of detail in the next video. This is all about the two specific builds in the video description below. We're going to be installing our Ryzen 7 CPU in the ASRock X370 Gaming K4 motherboard. Very nice for $150. It also has RGB lighting. Nice motherboard. That is the same board in both systems. For system memory, we have G.Skill's Trident Z RGB system RAM, DDR4 3200, 32 gigabytes of RAM. $320. Now we come to the first part that's different between the two builds. First of all, the only reason to buy the RGB RAM is if you want to create Christmas on your desktop. A nice case, I'll talk about that in a minute. You can get the non-RGB version of this RAM for about $80 less, about $240. Do you need 32 gigabytes? Well, I'll talk about that also in more detail in the Y vlog, but for most people, and in the second build below, it's going to be 16 gigabytes of DDR4 3200 rather than 32. So $120 for the less expensive build, $320 for the top end build. For a system case, we are going to be installing this today in the Cooler Master Master Case Maker 5T, $250 top-end case with two tempered glass side panels. Now, I've previously done an unboxing and overview of that case. Link to that video in the video description below. Very nice. Take it out of the box, take the side panels off, turn it around, look at it. It is a beautiful case. It is a premium price case, and it's not for everyone, but if your goal is to have a system that looks sharp, that's a good option. Now, for the less expensive build, we're going with a Cooler Master Master Case Pro 5, $110. Much less expensive, but still very capable. Doesn't have the tempered glass panels, weighs less, so easier to move around. If you're just looking for a case that goes under your desk that holds all your parts, take a look at the Master Case Pro in the $1,500 version of this build. Tying together our CPU, motherboard, and case is our cooler. We are going to be installing the Cooler Master Master Liquid 240mm cooler, $90. This includes in the box the AM4 bracket for the Ryzen CPUs. Most coolers on the market do not come with those. You will have to order those separately from each cooler company, but the Master Liquid 240mm cooler includes it in the box. Now, the goal here, of course, is to overclock, but on the less expensive build, the $1,500 version, we're not going to be using this. Instead, we're going to use the included Wraith Spire RGB cooler that comes in the box, so no extra charge. To power this computer, we're going to be using Cooler Master's V-Series 850 watt 80 plus gold certified power supply, $170. A high quality, excellent full-featured power supply with all the power in the world to run anything you could want to put into this machine. Now, the less expensive build, the $1,500 version, will have this same power supply, but it will have the 650 watt version for $110, saving $60, but still able to run almost anything you could want to put into this machine. That brings us to system storage, an area ripe for customization. We have 3 drives that are going into this machine, 2 solid state drives and 1 hard drive, at least in the $2,400 version of this build. First of all, we have ADATA's excellent SX8000 NVMe solid state drive. This is an M.2 PCI Express solid state drive, 256 gigabytes, $105. Great price for an NVMe drive at that size. Now that's going to be installed on the motherboard and be our boot drive. For additional solid state drive storage, we're going to be using Samsung's 850 EVO 1 terabyte solid state drive, $320. Yes, it's a lot of money, but it's a very fast serial ATA drive and will provide us lots of room to install games and, for my purposes, scratch disk space for video editing. In addition, for $70, we will also be adding a 2 terabyte Seagate hard drive. Now, the same price will buy you a Western Digital if you want. Take your pick, they're about the same. So that's our 3 items of storage in the $2,400 build. In the $1,500 build, I've kept the hard drive and I've kept this NVMe solid state drive because it is a good value for the money, simply deleting the 1 terabyte 850 EVO. When it comes to storage, it's a personal choice as to how much space you want and how much you want to spend. So the only difference between the 2 builds is simply the deletion of the extra SSD. And last but not least, we have our graphics card. We are going to be installing the EVGA GeForce GTX 1080 for the Win 2 graphics card. $590. It is a premium, high-end, factory overclocked GTX 1080 for a minor premium price. Now that's the card that's going into the $2,400 build. In the $1,500 build, we still have a GTX 1080, but instead we've come down 1 notch to a $500 card. There's actually several cards available at the $500 price. Pick the one that you prefer. There are several from Gigabyte and MSI and others. So that has been the parts overview of the Ryzen 7 1700 computer build video series, the $2,400 build that I'm actually putting together, as well as an alternative $1,500 version of this build. As I said before, both versions of the build in the video description, linked to both Amazon and Newegg. By all means, compare prices between both. They have great customer service. You will often find that your best deal is buying half the parts from Amazon and half from Newegg because prices vary. There's mail-in rebates and deals and discounts from time to time. Definitely shop and compare and buy it where it makes the most sense for you. Coming up after this video is going to be part 2, the why vlog. That's where I'm going to go into the details, such as why this CPU versus the other Ryzen chips, why that motherboard versus different motherboards. That'll be much longer, and if you want the detailed thinking behind the various component choices, be sure to watch part 2. Otherwise, using the link in the video description below, you can skip ahead to part 3, the actual build video, when it gets published. And that's where I put it together step by step so you can follow along. And as I said before, following up will be Windows performance, video encoding, 3D rendering, games, and many, many more benchmarks to come. Thank you so much for watching this video. Like it if you like it, share it with your friends if you loved it. Remember to subscribe to my channel using the big huge red button directly below this video. Questions and comments in the comment section, and as always, check out the video description. If you are interested in supporting my channel and you like the content that you see, there is a Patreon link down at the bottom. Even if you only have $1 to give, everything helps. As of April 1st, 2017, I am now going to be doing YouTube full time. Every little bit helps. So thank you so much. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.